Howdy Earthlings, while browsing the net, I found a game where people could play as snails in the world's most action-packed game there is, Snail Simulator. You play as a snail and go around the massive open world and explore it at a snail's pace, but in the good way, with other snails. If that doesn't sound exciting to you, then I really don't know what to say. Snails are probably the coolest animal next to shrimps and sheeps. No bias, of course. Yeah, so I'm about to make a video all about snails and you can't really stop me. This is Sera's Things after all. Before we start, extra special thanks to That Updog Art on Blue Sky for making all the snail art. If you want to support real people making real snart, make sure to support these videos and snartists like Updog through my Patreon or by commissioning Updog. We live together, so it helps us both regardless. Now, let's get snarted. So here are 10 awesome snail facts that I just had to share because I found a game about snails that I've been unironically enjoying. Snails can feel their shells. You never have to worry about a snail having an identity crisis. You'll never see them painting their spirally home. That's because they can feel anything touching their shell. So while you might get the urge to paint their shells like you might on a hermit crab, it's actually a terrible idea. Not only because they feel it, but because it's irritating to them. They'll try to scrape off the paint or eat it off themselves, and that could lead to them getting sick from the paint. So remember, your snail is beautiful just the way they are. Snail trails are more than just lubricants. You probably know that snails produce a slime that they leave behind called a snail trail. It's a form of mucus. Like me, you probably thought this was a form of lubricant in order to assist with movement. While that's true, there is a lot more to this goop than just getting our little train a chuggin'. It also serves a protective function for the snail's very soft and squishy underbelly. The amount of slime and the viscosity can protect them from a variety of hazards. Its slime is so thick that they can even go across sharp objects without any harm. This slime can also be used to stick themselves to objects, which allow them to inch their way up vertical climbs. It can even gross out would-be predators by making themselves taste bad, or be used as a way to detect and identify other snails. Like many animals, snails produce pheromones in order to attract a mate. Since they're hermaphrodites, that means that they have both sex organs, and they can mate with almost any other snail. This is convenient for obvious slowness reasons. If it takes them forever to get somewhere, they can't afford to be picky about their partner. But you might not appreciate the true weirdness of it unless I were to say something out of pocket like, this is like smelling your roommate's body odor to identify them. Why snails are slow? Snails are slow primarily because their diet is the only thing slower than them. Since their food doesn't need to move, they also don't need to move much faster than not moving. This means that the snail can conserve energy by going slower. Snails eat plant life like leaves and stems, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, and just about anything else slower than them. But since they're making a shell, they constantly need a source of calcium. The diet of a snail can also heavily differ depending on the kind of snail. Like a garden snail might eat discarded eggshells, while aquatic snails may eat the occasional entire fish or two. Honestly, if you get caught by a snail, then it's your own fault if it sends you back to the lobby, but usually these fish are already dead, unless it's one of those snails that do happen to hunt. Not all snails are slow. You already know about the common garden snail, and you've probably seen the snails at the pet store, but you've probably noticed that both of these snails look pretty much the same. But snails can get very weird depending on where you are. The job of a detritivore is a necessary one though, so there are snails everywhere. A lot of the shells you can think of belong to snails originally, like the puka shell, which we often put on necklaces. Those actually belong to the cone snail. The shells we call puka are actually a bunch of fragments of a bigger shell that have been naturally worn down over time from the ocean, basically rock tumbling them smooth. As they tumble around, they smooth out and eventually develop a hole for easy stringing, which is great because trying to get the shell from the source can be really tough because cone snails are venomous. They all have a large, sharp proboscis that they use for hunting. It works like a harpoon, and they stab the unsuspecting fish before filling it with venom. It's a fast-acting poison too, instantly paralyzing fishies. Once motionless, they'll retract the harpoon back into their mouth and consume the fishy and spit out the bones and used harpoon when done. Despite being a snail, this harpoon jab is one of the fastest movements on the planet. It can cut through fish and water at nearly 60 miles per hour, so an unsuspecting human picking up the shell could be stabbed and poisoned long before they even realize it. Thankfully, there are only 30 recorded events of snail stabbings, but it's better to be safe than to be number 31. Your chance of getting stabbed by a snail, well, it's not zero. Snails have been used as money. In the previous fact, I mentioned how there's many shells that we've collected that were snails' homemade houses at one point. Like the puka shell humans have collected, cowrie shells, and turned them into jewelry. These shells come from the cowrie snail and were used as money by many cultures across Africa and Asia. When talking about shell money in general, though, you can include nearly every continent as participating in shell money at some point. They were so synonymous with money that they were actually the inspiration for the Chinese character for money. The character was supposed to look like a cowrie shell, which, I guess, if you squint a little. Since all cowrie carry a shell, they're all rich in their own way. We should give them little top hats and monocles so that they look like the Monopoly guy. Snails like company. You've probably seen pictures or art of snails riding other larger snails. This is because despite their solitary nature, they actually really enjoy company. As I've said, they can feel whatever's on their shell, and if it's another snail, they don't mind. They make no effort to remove the snail. Since the snail can't always reach its shell for cleaning itself, it's nice to have little ones to help it out. They get a free meal, a free ride, and the big snail can finally clean behind their ears. But sometimes, they want to ride the shell for darker, more evil reasons. If a snail is low on calcium that's needed to produce their own shell, they may choose to ride another snail to steal some calcium from a more successful snail, eating that other snail's home. More interestingly, while snails don't recognize and love us the way a dog or a cat might, they still enjoy our attention. They enjoy having their shells touched, so wet your finger and gently rub their back, and they might even fall asleep to it. It's really adorable. Despite not being able to love us, it's still very cool that we can make them feel safe. Snails can be set to big mode. If petting a snail to sleep sounded really cool to you, then great news. There are snails the size of cats. The giant African snail is one such species of snail. An adult of this species ranges from 3 inches, which is already quite large, to as big as 8 inches. It's because of their size and their docile nature that they've been introduced to other regions outside of East Africa, as a food source and as a pet. It helps that they're an especially hardy species, being able to withstand freezing temperatures all the way up to Arizona summers, 115 degrees. They prefer slightly above room temperature, but they can do things like hibernate when it gets really cold. Its diet is also simple, not being any different from an average garden snail, like fruits, vegetables, flowers, weeds, and of course detritus. They're not picky either, as they'll even eat cardboard and feces. So if a snail ever invites you over to eat at their place, just politely turn them down. Unfortunately, you're not likely to have one as a pet because in the US, they're classified as an invasive species. That's because they carry a parasite which can cause meningitis in humans. This is out of the ordinary because normally a human has to eat a snail to risk catching meningitis from it. In this case, just simply touching one is enough. So as gruesome as it is, if you see a snail the size of a shoe, you're supposed to report it, or dispose of it, mafia style. Cement shoes. Well, cement shoe because snails only have 1 foot, it's that bottom part of them. It's unfortunate, but snails reproduce very fast and in large numbers. The reproduction speed is an issue even in its home, where there are way too many of these slime puppies. Snails are related to other cool animals. You remember that kid in school who said his uncle worked at Nintendo? Well, if snails weren't already cool, they are related to some real superstars of the animal kingdom. Snails are mollusks, which means they have soft bodies made of muscle. They have a mantle, they have a radula, the harpoon thing that I mentioned from before, and a nervous system. So this is, of course, pretty vague. So it includes a wide variety of animals like other snails, but also octopi, cuttlefish, slugs, and squids. So while a snail might not be capable of love, its cousin the octopus can and will break your heart if you're ever mean to a snail. Aquatic snails have harder times finding mates. You probably already knew that the land snails are hermaphroditic before I even told you about that. Aquatic snails are too, but their reproduction methods vary from snail to snail. Some can fertilize themselves and reproduce, while others have to mate with others. But unlike land snails, they can't just get it on with anyone. They need to find another snail whose hookup is the inverse of theirs, and this is dictated by the way their shells spiral, called chirality. Depending on the direction the shell coils, decides the direction their partner needs to be. Opposites attract. Because of the pickiness, it's possible a sea snail will go its whole life surrounded by same spirals and thus never find a mate that it can mate with. You know how we have terms for parties with too many dudes? We call it a sausage fest. I wonder if snails would call it like a clockwise or a counterclockwise fest. Snails are their own worst enemy. I mentioned how snails will produce mucus to make themselves taste bad to predators, or how their shell protects them from predators. Well, there is one predator that has no issue eating another snail, shell and all. They also know how to find them by using the prey snail's slime trail, and will actively hunt them down. They're predatory gastropods. If you're an aquarium owner, you might be familiar with the assassin, killer, or bumblebee snail. These are a species of aquatic freshwater snail, and like my wife, aren't just pretty, but deadly too. Unlike other aquatic snails, they have zero interest in cleaning your tank. They rather hunt down and eat the other snails, and they're so efficient at hunting them down that they're often used to cull overpopulation of other snails in a tank. In a tank scenario, they'll primarily eat baby snails, but if too many assassin snails are around, they may team up and take down a larger snail, which is just so crazy to me. It's like discovering a new hobby and finding some longtime beef or drama that's just been hidden out of sight. Like I only just started learning about snail keeping, and now I'm learning about roving bands of assassin snails and their pack hunting tactics. Wild. These aren't the only predatory snails though. though. You might remember the giant slime puppies. Well, they have a predator in snail form too, called the rosy wolf snail. These were introduced to the giant African snail population when they were invading Hawaii to cull them. As is the case with introducing another foreign species to hunt a foreign species, you're just replacing one invasive species with another. Sometimes you're doubling your problem. The rosy wolf snail didn't know that they could eat the African snail, so they ate the native population of Oahu snails. Rosies were so effective at this job that they hunted multiple species to extinction in its first year of introduction. Do not try to solve an invasive species with another invasive species. It never works. Anyway, this snail lives a short and violent life, living for about 2 years, about half as long as the average snail. They usually die to a disease caused by their food. The way they eat is very different from the assassin snail, who prefers to burrow and ambush their prey, or the cone snail, who lays patient and lances the fish. Instead, the rosy wolf will chase down other snails and will suck the prey snail straight from the shell, or eat them whole, escargot style. They find their prey by following their slime trails, and since they're very hungry and horny all the time, they spend the majority of their life following these trails for food or sexy times. They're really efficient at killing too. They have a harpoon-like tongue like the cone snail, and also has teeth encircling it like a drill, and they can shoot it out past their mouth to stab. Rosies also have their digestive system front-loaded so they can begin eating and processing it immediately. They are efficient killers. The coolest thing is that these little nut jobs probably live very close to you. If you live in the southern US, you can meet a serial killer in real life if you look hard enough. There are other predatory snails, of course, but these ones eat the cute ones that I talked about, and I just wanted to traumatize you. That's 10 for you now, and I could easily do more. There are just so many cool snails to talk about. But for now, I'll see you later. If you like this video, don't forget to like and sub. I want to reach 100k subs one day. Also, if you really like this video, consider becoming a supporter through Patreon or members like these fine people did. So thanks to Nebozi, Aspirin Artist, Paper, Faye Penguin, Momentary Unicorn, Aurora the Puppy Moth, Nat, Marius Yini, Worm Syrup, Rask, Beef, Colorado Blue, Vaderson, Linky again, Willie P, TG Dante 29 who made this background, and Molding Brick. Now, I need to slowly walk 3 hours to the grocery store so I can get a single banana. Bye.